My pulse thundered in my ears as Richard Green's words struck like physical blows. "Well," he waved dismissively at me, "Catherine, we've arranged for the help to stay in the kitchen during the main reception. Wouldn't want to overwhelm the justices with too many unfamiliar faces." The Princeton Law School kitchen's polished surfaces reflected the humiliation burning across my face, not because I was embarrassed, but because these people had spent months belittling my son, Victor, while never realizing who they were actually speaking to. The catering staff exchanged knowing glances, silent witnesses to my deliberate silence, as Richard's daughter Natalie assessed my simple navy suit with barely concealed contempt. I tasted metal as I maintained my composed expression, the same one I'd worn while sentencing Richard's firm's former client in a landmark corruption case just last month. They hadn't recognized me then either. "My name is Patricia, I'm 52 and a federal judge. This is the story of how I taught a privileged family that true worth isn't measured by social status." For months, I'd watched how the Greens treated Victor. My brilliant son had earned his place at Princeton Law through relentless work and natural talent, dating Natalie Green despite her family's thinly veiled disdain for his modest background. Richard, a managing partner at one of New York's most prestigious law firms, constantly questioned Victor's pedigree, never bothering to ask about his family beyond learning I was a single mother from the Bronx. "Katie, darling." Richard's voice pulled me back to the present as he straightened his Italian leather tie. "Justice Williams has arrived." His eyes flickered to me with that particular brand of dismissal reserved for those he deemed irrelevant. "You must be Victor's mother. The one from where was it again?" "The Bronx Supreme Court," I supplied helpfully, watching him misinterpret my answer exactly as expected. "Yes, well," he smiled tightly, the same nervous expression he'd worn during his firm's arguments before my bench last month. "Catherine, we've arranged for the help to stay in the kitchen during the main reception." The insult hung in the air, deliberate and cutting. 6 months of similar comments flashed through my mind. Richard telling colleagues Victor came from humble stock. Natalie suggesting my son distance himself from his embarrassing background to better fit into their world. Margaret Green wondering aloud if I could even afford a proper dress for tonight's reception. "How thoughtful," Victor's voice carried across the kitchen. My son, handsome in his graduation robes, looked every bit the future legal star he was destined to become. Unlike the Greens, he'd earned his place through merit rather than money. "Victor, darling," Natalie rushed to him, diamond earrings catching the light. "I was just helping your mother find her place." My son's face darkened. "In the kitchen, Nat. We talked about this." "It's fine," I said softly, the same tone I used before delivering a particularly devastating verdict. "I'm quite comfortable here." Richard Green straightened his tie. "Yes, well, given your background, we thought you'd prefer something less formal. After all," his smile turned condescending, "not everyone is equipped to handle conversations with Supreme Court justices." Victor stepped forward, but I caught his eye. The slight shake of my head was enough. He recognized my courtroom face. I hadn't spent 20 years on the bench without learning when to spring a trap. "Perhaps," I said, "we should focus on the reception. I believe I hear Justice Williams discussing the Martinez decision from last month's federal circuit." Right on cue through the kitchen doors came the distinguished voice of Justice Williams. "Where is Patricia?" I was hoping to congratulate her on that brilliant opinion. Completely revolutionizes our approach to corporate accountability. Richard Green's face froze mid-smile. "Judge Martinez?" A young clerk poked his head into the kitchen. "Justice Williams is asking for you. He wants your input on the corporate fraud guidelines." The look on Natalie's face was priceless, horror spreading like spilled wine across her features as realization dawned. "Judge, Federal Judge Patricia Martinez," I corrected gently, smoothing my suit, "though I do appreciate your concern about my ability to handle conversations with the Supreme Court. I only argue before them, every other month or so." Richard Green had turned an interesting shade of gray. "But you, the Bronx Supreme Court." "Was where I started 20 years ago," I finished, "before becoming the youngest federal judge in the Second Circuit. Your firm appears before me quite regularly, Mr. Green, though you seem to send your junior partners more often than not. Natalie's perfect composure cracked. But you let us think you were the help. I raised an eyebrow. Yes, I did. Consider it a lesson in judgment and the dangers of assumption. Now, shall we join the reception? I believe Justice Williams is waiting. As I walked past the shell-shocked Greens, Olivia the server caught my eye and gave me a subtle thumbs up. I winked back, making a mental note to recommend her daughter for our court's internship program. Victor fell into step beside me. You knew this would happen. Sometimes, I said, straightening his graduation robes, people need to learn their lessons in memorable ways. Besides, watching Richard Green realize he's been condescending to the judge who's about to hear his firm's biggest case next week, I allowed myself a small smile. Priceless. And Natalie? Victor studied my face carefully. That depends on whether she learns from this, I replied, though I suspect she'll need more than one lesson about judging books by their covers. As we entered the main reception, Justice Williams boomed. Patricia! Brilliant opinion on the Martinez case. Simply brilliant. Tell me, how did you anticipate the corporate structure loophole? I smiled, feeling the Green family's stares burning into my back. Actually, Bill, that insight came from my early days working as a night janitor at the courthouse while putting myself through law school. Sometimes the best understanding of the law comes from seeing its effects on every level of society. The gathered legal luminaries nodded appreciatively, while behind me I heard Natalie whisper to her father, Daddy, I think I made a terrible mistake. Indeed, you did, I thought, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. But perhaps there was hope for her yet. After all, I didn't become a federal judge by believing people couldn't change. The next hour unfolded like a masterclass in social discomfort. Richard Green, who'd spent the past 6 months telling everyone his daughter was marrying into new legal royalty, now watched helplessly as his colleagues connected the dots between his future in-law and the federal judge he'd been actively avoiding in court. Judge Martinez, a senior partner from his firm, approached, champagne glass trembling slightly. We had no idea you were Victor's mother. Richard has been unusually modest about the connection. Has he? I smiled, enjoying Richard's visible perspiration. How unlike him, especially given his passionate arguments against my ruling in the Winston case last spring, though I primarily heard those through his junior associates, of course. The senior partner's face tightened. Everyone in the legal community knew Richard had dumped that case on his subordinates after my preliminary ruling went against his client. Richard, you never mentioned you had such personal insight into Judge Martinez's perspectives. Natalie, still wearing her designer dress but with considerably less composure, hovered at the edges of conversations, watching her carefully cultivated social network realign itself around the new reality. The daughters of other legal dynasties who previously followed her lead in snubbing Victor's humble background now competed for his attention. Victor, she caught his arm as he passed. I need to explain. Explain what, Nat? My son's voice was quiet but carried the same steel I often use from the bench. Explain how you told your friends my mother couldn't afford a proper dress for the reception? Or how you suggested I distance myself from my embarrassing background to better fit into your world. I pretended not to listen while chatting with Justice Williams, but I caught Natalie's flinch. I didn't know... That's worse, Victor cut in. You didn't know she was a federal judge, so you thought it was okay to treat her like she was beneath you. What does that say about how you view people who actually work in service jobs? Olivia, the kind server from earlier, passed by with a tray. Natalie's face flushed as she recognized her from the countless times she'd snapped at her during previous events. Natalie's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide her growing distress. Victor, please, we can fix this. Fix what? A new voice joined the conversation. Margaret Green, Natalie's mother, arrived with the precise timing of someone who'd been waiting for the right moment to pounce. Natalie, darling, we need to discuss damage control. Do you realize half the judges in this room have heard about your little kitchen incident? I decided to take pity on them, or perhaps set up an even more valuable lesson. Mrs. Green, I turned from my conversation. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private. The donor's lounge should be empty. The Greens followed me like condemned prisoners to their sentence. Once inside the luxurious lounge, Margaret immediately went on the offensive. Judge Martinez, surely we can come to an understanding. Richard's firm has several major cases pending in your court. Are you attempting to negotiate with a federal judge, Mrs. Green? I kept my voice mild, but both women paled. Because that would be highly inappropriate, wouldn't it? I didn't mean... No, I said softly. You never mean it, do you? You never mean to be cruel to service staff, or to judge people based on their perceived social status, or to teach your daughter that human worth is measured by bank accounts and family connections. Natalie sank into a leather chair. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know it doesn't help, but I am truly sorry. Actually, I took a seat across from her, it does help, but only if it's the beginning of real change, not just damage control. Margaret remained standing, her perfectly manicured hands clasped tightly. What do you want from us? Want? I raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Green, I have everything I could want. A fulfilling career, a wonderful son, and the satisfaction of knowing I earned every step of my success. The question is, what do you want for your daughter? Natalie looked up, mascara slightly smudged. What do you mean? I mean, do you want her to continue believing that worth is measured by designer labels and social connections? Or do you want her to understand what real strength and character look like? I don't understand, Margaret began, but Natalie interrupted. You want me to work for it? She said slowly. Like you did, like Victor does. I smiled, seeing perhaps the first genuine insight from her all evening. My first job was cleaning courtrooms at night. Know what I learned there? That the person emptying your trash bin at 2 a.m. might be studying for the bar exam. That the server you snapped at might have a daughter in law school. That character isn't inherited with trust funds. It's built through understanding and respecting every person's dignity. But what can I do? Natalie asked, and for the first time, I heard real desperation to learn in her voice. Well, I said, the Legal Aid Society is always looking for volunteers, and I believe the Courthouse Daycare Center needs reading tutors for the children of defendants who can't afford childcare during their trials. Margaret gasped. Natalie can't possibly... I'll do it, Natalie cut in. Both programs, and I'd like to apologize to Olivia and all the other staff I've been horrible to. Natalie, her mother protested. No, Mother. Natalie stood, straightening her spine. Judge Martinez is right. I've been awful. We all have. And if I want to deserve someone like Victor, I need to become someone worthy of respect, not just someone who demands it. I studied her face, seeing perhaps the first crack in the perfectly crafted social facade. You know, this won't be easy. Your friends won't understand. Your parents' social circle will talk. Let them, Natalie said firmly. I'd rather be known for doing something meaningful than for being mean to people who serve me drinks. Margaret sank into a chair, looking shell-shocked. Your father will never understand. Then perhaps, I suggested, it's time for Mr. Green to spend some time in his firm's pro bono department. I hear they're terribly understaffed. As we returned to the reception, I watched Natalie walk straight to Olivia and ask for a moment of her time. The apology wasn't perfect. Years of ingrained superiority don't disappear in one evening. But it was a start. Victor appeared at my elbow. You're giving her a chance. I'm giving her an opportunity, I corrected. Whether it becomes a chance depends on what she does with it. And her father's cases in your court? I smiled. Will be heard with the same impartiality I show all cases, though perhaps Mr. Green might find himself with a surprising number of pro bono assignments in the coming months. As the reception wound down, I watched Natalie help the staff clear glasses, her designer dress slightly wrinkled, but her smile more genuine than I'd ever seen it. Sometimes, I thought, the best judgments aren't made from the bench. 3 months after the reception, I sat in my chambers reviewing case files when my clerk announced an unexpected visitor, Natalie Green. Victor had mentioned that she had been following through on her commitments to the volunteer programs, but I hadn't seen her personally since that night. She looked different, Gone were the designer labels and perfectly coiffed hair. Instead, she wore a simple blazer, and her hands showed slight calluses from actual work. "Judge Martinez," she started, then corrected herself. "Patricia, I wanted to show you something." She placed a folder on my desk. Inside were thank you letters from the children at the courthouse daycare center, where she'd been spending her mornings reading to them. Photos showed her sitting cross-legged on the floor, helping kids with homework while their parents attended court proceedings. "Olivia's daughter got accepted to law school," Natalie said quietly. "I've been helping her prepare for the LSAT between my legal aid shifts. She's brilliant. She just needed someone to believe in her." I nodded, noting the absence of her usual makeup and the new confidence that had replaced her social armor. "And your father?" Natalie's laugh held a touch of irony. "He's discovering that pro bono cases can be surprisingly fulfilling. Last week, he helped a homeless veteran reclaim his pension benefits. I've never seen him so excited about a legal victory, and it wasn't even for a paying client." "And your mother?" "She's adjusting," Natalie smiled. She joined the courthouse daycare center's fundraising committee, though she did insist on teaching the children proper table etiquette alongside their reading lessons. I set down the folder. "And you? Are you finding what you're looking for?" Natalie's expression turned serious. "I found something I didn't know I was missing. Purpose, real connections. The children don't care about my last name or my handbag collection. They care that I show up, that I listen, that I help." "And Victor?" Her face softened. "He was right to be disappointed in me that night, but he's proud of me now. Not because I'm trying to impress his mother, the federal judge, but because I'm finally becoming someone he can respect." I studied her carefully. The entitled socialite who had tried to hide me in the kitchen was gone, replaced by someone who understood the value of earned respect. "My old friends don't understand," she continued. "They think I'm having some sort of breakdown spending time with those people. But for the first time, I'm not worried about what they think. Because you've learned what really matters. Because I've learned who really matters," she corrected. "The mothers working 3 jobs to support their kids through school. The courthouse staff who know every judge's coffee preference but never get thanked. The public defenders fighting impossible odds with impossible caseloads." I smiled, remembering my own journey from nighttime janitor to federal judge. "And what's next for the new Natalie Green?" She straightened in her chair. "I've applied to work as a public defender after graduation. Father nearly had a heart attack. He already had my corner office at the firm picked out, but I want to earn my own way, make my own mark." "It won't be easy," I warned. "The pay is low, the hours are long, and the work is heartbreaking." "I know," she said simply. "But thanks to that night in the kitchen, I finally understand that the hardest paths often lead to the most meaningful destinations." As Natalie left my chambers, I thought about power and privilege, about kitchens and courtrooms, about lessons taught in unexpected moments. Victor appeared in my doorway. "Mom, ready for lunch?" "Let me guess, Natalie told you she was coming." He grinned. "She wanted you to know the lesson stuck. That she's changed." "No," I corrected, gathering my robes. "She's changing. And that's even better, because it means she's doing it for herself, not for us." As we walked to lunch, passing Olivia's daughter studying law books in the courthouse library, I remembered another young woman who'd once cleaned these halls while dreaming of something more. Sometimes the best verdicts are the ones that transform lives rather than just judge them. And sometimes the biggest changes start in the smallest places, like a kitchen at a law school reception, where an entitled young woman learned that true worth isn't about where you stand, but how you treat those around you. As for Victor and Natalie's relationship, they decided to take some time apart after the reception to allow Natalie to focus on her personal growth. 6 months later, they began dating again, this time on a more equal foundation of mutual respect. Victor had seen genuine change in Natalie, not just temporary remorse, and they are now building a relationship based on shared values rather than social expectations. Before you go, if you enjoy stories about personal growth and transformation, you might want to try audiobooks. There's an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That gives you access to over 500,000 titles at no cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. The cake exploded in a cloud of powdered sugar as it hit the hospital floor. I didn't mean to drop it, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking after what the doctor had just told me. My 11-year-old daughter, Olivia, lay unconscious in the pediatric ICU bed. Her face swollen beyond recognition, oxygen mask fogging with each labored breath. The doctor's words hung in the air. If you hadn't administered the epinephrine when you did, we would be having a very different conversation. Behind me, my mother-in-law, Regina, stood with a strange expression, not quite concern, not quite defiance. My husband Thomas was still in the hallway, his conversation with the police officer echoing through the partially open door. Yes, nuts were deliberately added to the cake. Yes, we have multiple witnesses. Yes, we were very clear about the allergy. My name is Naomi. I'm 37 and a former event planner. This is the story of how I learned that protecting your child sometimes means cutting out family. For 3 years, I'd tried to navigate my relationship with Regina. She'd never approved of me from the moment Thomas introduced us. I wasn't from the right family, didn't have the right background. I could handle her subtle digs at my parenting, my cooking, even my appearance. What I couldn't handle was her complete disregard for Olivia's severe nut allergy. All children have sensitivities these days, she'd say at family dinners, rolling her eyes. When Thomas was growing up, we didn't coddle him with all these special foods and restrictions. Thomas's father, Robert, would usually intervene. Regina, please. Allergies are serious medical conditions, not parenting choices. I'd been grateful for Robert's support even when Thomas wavered under his mother's influence. It was one of the reasons I continued allowing Regina in our lives despite her behavior. Olivia deserved grandparents and Robert was wonderful with her. When we moved closer to Thomas's parents 2 years ago for his new position at the university, I'd hoped the proximity would improve Regina's understanding of our situation. Instead, it gave her more opportunities to undermine me. Naomi is so dramatic about this nut thing, I overheard her telling Thomas one Sunday afternoon while I was in the kitchen. My friend Margaret's grandson outgrew his allergies after they slowly introduced small amounts. Exposure therapy, they called it. I'd stepped into the room, dish towel still in hand. That's incredibly dangerous, Regina. Olivia's allergist specifically warned against exposure. It could kill her. Regina had smiled thinly. You always expect the worst, don't you? So negative around Olivia all the time. 2 months ago, Regina's comments escalated to actions. Olivia came home from a weekend visit with her grandparents complaining of an itchy mouth. When I questioned her about what she'd eaten, she mentioned a cookie Regina had given her. Grandma said it was special, just for me, Olivia explained. It tasted funny, but she said I had to finish it to be polite. My blood ran cold. I called Thomas immediately and we rushed Olivia to urgent care. Thankfully, the reaction was mild. The cookie had been made in a facility that processed nuts, but didn't contain them directly. When confronted, Regina claimed ignorance. How was I supposed to know about cross-contamination? You're making me feel like a criminal over a cookie. Thomas promised to talk to his mother, to make her understand the severity of the situation. Mom respects me, he assured me. She'll listen if I'm the one explaining. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him, because the alternative meant acknowledging that my mother-in-law was actively endangering our daughter. A week before Olivia's 11th birthday, Thomas and I were finalizing plans for her party when Regina called. She insisted on bringing a special birthday cake. I've ordered it from that fancy bakery downtown, she said. Consider it my gift to Olivia. Something in her voice made my skin prickle. Regina, you know any cake needs to be nut-free. We're already ordering one from the allergy-friendly bakery. Don't be ridiculous, she replied. A proper birthday deserves a proper cake, not some tasteless substitute. Besides, I've already paid the deposit. Thomas took the phone from me. Mom, we appreciate the gesture, but we need to stick with our original plan. Olivia's safety comes first. Fine, Regina had snapped before hanging up. I should have known then that she hadn't given up. On the day of Olivia's birthday, Regina and Robert arrived an hour early, before any of the other guests. Regina carried an enormous pink and white box with a golden ribbon. "Happy birthday to my special granddaughter," she announced, placing the heavy package on the table. Olivia's eyes widened. "What is it, Grandma?" "A surprise that can't wait until after the party," Regina said, glancing at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This needs to be opened now before everyone else arrives." Robert looked confused. "Regina, I thought we agreed to wait." "Nonsense," Regina replied. "Olivia wants to open it now, don't you, darling?" I felt a tightness in my chest, a warning signal I'd ignored too many times before. "We should really wait for the other guests, Regina." "Mom brought something special," Thomas said, placing his hand on my shoulder. "It's okay if Olivia opens just this one gift early." Regina's triumphant smile as Olivia tore into the wrapping paper made my stomach turn. Inside was an elaborate 3-tiered cake covered in fondant butterflies and Olivia's name in gold lettering. "Make a wish and take the first bite," Regina urged, producing a knife and plate from her purse. Olivia looked at me, hesitating. "Can I, Mom?" Before I could answer, Regina cut a large slice and handed it to Olivia. "Of course you can. It's your special day." What happened next plays in slow motion in my nightmares. Olivia took a bite. Her smile faltered. She looked at me, confusion in her eyes, then touched her throat. "Mom?" Her voice was already changing, constricting. I lunged forward as Olivia's plate clattered to the floor. Her lips were swelling, red blotches spreading across her face. I caught her as her knees buckled. "Thomas, the EpiPen!" I screamed, lowering Olivia to the floor as her breathing became labored wheezes. Thomas sprinted to the kitchen where we kept the emergency kit. Regina stood frozen, her hands over her mouth. "What did you put in that cake?" I demanded, cradling Olivia's increasingly limp body. Regina's response chilled me to the bone. "Just a little bit of almond extract. It's barely anything. She needs to build tolerance." Thomas returned with the auto-injector, his face ashen. I administered the epinephrine into Olivia's thigh as Robert called 911. The minutes waiting for the ambulance were the longest of my life. Olivia's breathing shallow, her pulse racing under my fingertips. "She'll be fine," Regina kept saying, though no one was listening to her anymore. "You're all overreacting. This is how children overcome these things." In the chaos of the ambulance arrival and rushing to the hospital, I'd lost track of Regina. It wasn't until hours later, after the doctors had stabilized Olivia and confirmed what we already knew, that she'd suffered a severe anaphylactic reaction to nuts, that I saw her again in the hospital room, standing awkwardly near the door. Robert had driven Thomas and me to the hospital while Regina followed in her own car, arriving shortly after we did. Now, as I looked at her across Olivia's hospital bed, the cake I'd brought from the cafeteria splattered across the floor, I felt something inside me harden into certainty. "Get out," I said, my voice low but clear. Regina blinked. "Naomi, I know you're upset, but—" "Get out!" I shouted, my control finally snapping. "You did this. You deliberately put nuts in her cake after we told you 1,000 times it could kill her." Thomas burst into the room, followed by the police officer and a startled nurse. "What's happening?" Thomas asked, looking between us. "Your mother is leaving," I said, not taking my eyes off Regina, "and she is never coming near our daughter again." Regina's face twisted. "This is ridiculous. Thomas, tell your wife she's being hysterical. I only wanted to help Olivia overcome this silly restriction." Silly restriction. Thomas's voice had gone dangerously quiet. "My daughter is in intensive care because of you." Regina's eyes widened. "You can't possibly blame me for this. Naomi has been poisoning your mind against me for years. She's the one who's made Olivia believe she has these allergies." "Deliberately exposing a child to a known allergen is assault, ma'am," the police officer interjected. "We have multiple witnesses who heard you admit to adding almond extract to the cake, despite knowing about the child's allergy." "This is a family matter," Regina said, her voice rising. "You have no right to interfere." Robert stepped into the room then, his normally jovial face grave. Regina, that's enough. What you did was inexcusable. You too. Regina turned to him, betrayal in her eyes. After 40 years of marriage, you're taking their side? This isn't about sides, Robert said quietly. This is about what you did to our granddaughter. The officer stepped forward. Mrs. Kingston, I need you to come with me to answer some questions. This is absurd, Regina sputtered as the officer led her from the room. I was trying to help. You'll regret this, all of you. Her threats echoed down the hallway as she was escorted away. In the silence that followed, Thomas sank into the chair beside Olivia's bed and took her small hand in his. I'm so sorry, he whispered. Though whether to our unconscious daughter or to me, I wasn't sure. Robert remained by the door, shoulders slumped. I had no idea she would go this far, he said, his voice breaking. All these years, I thought I could manage her behavior, buffer the worst of it. I failed you all. I wanted to comfort him, but my focus remained on Olivia, on the monitors tracking her vital signs, on the way her chest rose and fell with each breath, breaths that had nearly stopped because someone who should have protected her had instead put her in danger. 2 days later, Olivia was released from the hospital. The physical symptoms had subsided, but the emotional aftermath was just beginning. Why did Grandma want to hurt me? Olivia asked as we drove home, her voice small in the back seat. Thomas and I exchanged glances. How do you explain toxic family dynamics to a child? Grandma didn't understand how serious your allergy is, I said carefully. She thought she knew better than the doctors. But I told her it makes me sick, Olivia insisted. Every time we went to her house, she tried to make me eat stuff with nuts. She said I was being dramatic like you, Mom. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Did you tell us about this before? Olivia looked down at her hands. I tried once, but Dad said Grandma wouldn't do that on purpose, and Grandpa always checked my food after that, so I thought it was okay. Thomas turned in his seat to face our daughter, his expression stricken. Olivia, I'm so sorry I didn't listen to you. That was wrong of me. While Olivia recuperated at home, the legal process moved forward. Regina was charged with reckless endangerment and assault. The prosecutor explained that Regina's actions, deliberately exposing Olivia to a known allergen after being repeatedly warned of the danger, constituted a serious crime. Regina hired an expensive lawyer who tried to paint her as a well-meaning grandmother caught in a misunderstanding. But the evidence was overwhelming. There were text messages to friends about curing Olivia's allergy, the bakery receipt specifically requesting almond extract in the cake, and multiple witnesses who heard her admit to adding the ingredient deliberately. What shocked me most during this process was learning that this wasn't Regina's first attempt. Through text messages and witness statements, we discovered she'd been secretly exposing Olivia to nuts in small amounts for months during visits to their house, always when Robert wasn't paying attention. I was helping her build tolerance, Regina insisted during a preliminary hearing. Many children outgrow allergies this way. The allergist who testified explained in painstaking detail why Regina's home exposure therapy was not only ineffective, but potentially deadly. Desensitization can only be done in a controlled medical environment with emergency equipment and trained personnel present, he explained. What Mrs. Kingston did was equivalent to giving a child with asthma less oxygen to toughen up their lungs. Robert filed for divorce the same week. After 4 decades of marriage, he couldn't reconcile the woman he loved with someone who would knowingly harm their granddaughter. I should have seen it sooner, he told us one evening as we sat on our back porch. All those times she dismissed serious concerns, treated rules as if they didn't apply to her. I always made excuses, smoothed things over. The divorce hit Regina harder than the criminal charges. She'd expected the legal system to be lenient with a grandmother, but she never expected to lose her husband. When the divorce papers were served to her while she was out on bail, she showed up at our house, pounding on the door, screaming that we'd destroyed her life. Thomas called the police while I held Olivia in the bathroom, trying to cover her ears as Regina's tirade escalated outside. By the time officers arrived to remove her, she'd broken several flower pots and scratched the word liars into our front door with her car keys. The restraining order was granted the next day. The judge approved a comprehensive protection order that covered not just our home, but also Olivia's school and other places she frequented. Regina ultimately accepted a plea deal, 18 months in prison, followed by 5 years of probation during which she could have no contact with Olivia. The judge was unswayed by her tearful claims of good intentions. "Intent does not excuse reckless disregard for a child's safety," he stated during sentencing. "You were repeatedly informed of the dangers and chose to ignore them, placing your grandchild at serious risk of death." As Regina was led from the courtroom, she locked eyes with me one last time. There was no remorse there, only a cold hatred that confirmed we'd made the right decision. In the year since the incident, our family has changed in ways I never anticipated. Thomas and I attend therapy together, working through the complex emotions of cutting off a parent and rebuilding trust between us. Olivia sees a child psychologist who specializes in medical trauma, helping her understand that her grandmother's actions weren't her fault. Robert has become an even more present figure in Olivia's life, careful to never speak ill of Regina, but equally firm in supporting our boundaries. He's found a small apartment near us and often joins us for Sunday dinners and school events. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago, giving Robert the fresh start he needed. Last week, as we celebrated Olivia's 12th birthday, a smaller, quieter affair than planned, I watched my daughter blow out her candles on a cake from our trusted, allergy-friendly bakery. Her wish, she later told me, was for our family to always stay just like this, smaller, but safer. "Do you think Grandma will try to see me when she gets out of jail?" Olivia asked as we cleaned up after the party. "If she tries," Thomas said, kneeling to meet her eyes, "she'll have to get through both of us first." Olivia nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. "And Grandpa, too. He told me he's our guardian now." Thomas and I exchanged surprised glances. "Guardian?" I asked. "Yeah," Olivia said matter-of-factly. "He said he's guarding us from bad things now, not just watching from the sidelines. He made me pinky swear not to eat food from anyone unless you guys say it's okay, even if they say they're family." Later that night, after Olivia had gone to bed, Thomas and I sat on the porch swing, the same spot where we'd once argued about his mother's behavior. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner," he said, his voice thick. "About my mother, about all of it." I leaned my head against his shoulder. "I'm sorry, too, that we had to learn this lesson in such a terrible way." "Do you think we'll ever forgive her?" he asked. I considered this question carefully. "I don't know, but I do know we'll never forget, and that's what will keep Olivia safe." As we sat there in the darkness, I thought about family, not the one you're born into, but the one you choose to build and protect. Sometimes love means setting boundaries so firm they become walls. Sometimes it means cutting away the parts that threaten the whole. And sometimes it means accepting that not everyone deserves a place at your table, no matter what blood you share. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.